All right, hello, and welcome back to Preds Power Hour on a different day. We're doing this on a Saturday because the NHL trade deadline came and went on Friday, so we wanted to save, just anything where it's like, of course, like that's something that happens to all big podcasters is you spend a lot of time on an episode and you're like, this is what's going to happen. And this is like, I think we're done. And then something big breaks right after. Anything I do, Tennessee, it seems like it just never fails. Someone to commit, something to happen. Sky getting like it's just always something to happen.
Show cause, stuff
show
like
cause,
that.
like that. There's just all kinds of stuff that happens here at the University of Tennessee, but we love it. Bryan and I specifically. I feel like Jeff is a Vanderbilt guy because he shares Vanderbilt stuff. And I didn't want to say anything when you were talking about you wanted to talk Tennessee football before we got started here, Bryan, because I was like, he shared like two, and I don't know if he accidentally did it because that's like the only thing that would make sense to sharing anything Vanderbilt related.
Seriously.
Is that like it was an accident?
Wow.
But
wow.
I think he's a genuine Commodore fan, which
I am.
Look, more power to you, Jeff. I'm just upset that we're still latched to you guys when we switch to the 14-team conference with OU and Texas, where it's like we have to still play you every year because you're our natural rival. But is it a rivalry when we won 56-0? Like just this past year?
It's a rivalry when we beat you guys with a buzzer beater on.
They did do that. That was pretty dope.
Was brutal.
And then you guys, and then you lose to Missouri on another buzzer beater.
Yes.
I can't tell you anything about a late season loss to Missouri ruining things. I wouldn't know anything about that. But no, I think it's nice for us to be nice to Jeff about this because again, and be fair to the commissioner, the SEC, because this 14 teams, they're going to take away one of the cupcake games, and so that's nice that we get to retain Vanderbilt for that purpose.
A guaranteed one win.
Yeah,
and I love the Vanderbilt thing too. It's like that's how you know it's on a rivalry when it's like if Tennessee's head coach loses to Vanderbilt, you get fired. Like that's it. Like that's something. It's like I don't know if it's in the contract, but it should be in the contract. You lose the Vanderbilt game, you're out. I don't care if Heupel loses it ever. Don't care how much I love him. Got to be out.
Let's be a little easy on that one. There,
we're on our way up. Okay.
We're
on your way up.
It'll take a little bit, but we're on. Hey. They won some good games this year, football wise. They won some games. They were better than I thought they would be.
They almost went bowling.
Yeah, they're better than I thought they would be, and that's okay. I'll take it.
I mean, there you go. I actually like it's baseball that really bothers me. Like the Vandy boys and like Tim Corbin and like we still don't know who outed Vitello and why he had to serve that suspension. One SEC coach, we don't know who it is, but people have theories on which SEC coach potentially dimed out Tony Vitello and what happened there with a stupid just plane ticket. Like, what are we doing, folks?
Too much swag.
What are we
That's
doing?
why I got in trouble.
You can't keep us down. Tennessee, like they may not lose another baseball game again. We're nearing double digits in a row.
You gotta beat Notre Dame first.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I'm leading. Then I'm giving Jeff these moments, Bryan.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to give him Vanderbilt, but when he starts talking about Notre Dame, oof.
So anyways,
we got hockey though, right?
We do have hockey, and the thing that brings us together, it's not Tennessee and Vanderbilt, unfortunately. No, it's the Nashville Predators. A lot has happened. It's amazing to think about where we were last week with Greg and what we were talking about. Like, they might do a little thing. They might just move Ekholm. I guess that's a possibility. Like maybe they'll do that. Maybe after the year they'll bring in Barry Trotz and somebody will retire. Maybe they'll do something. Maybe. But they were like, the Preds Power Hour really set things in motion for us. It's like, we read the temperature in the room. The Preds fan base was chomping at the bit for this. This was actually something only so many catfishes can be thrown onto the ice during a live game where it's like, maybe we actually have to do this thing we have not done in the history of the Nashville Predators to this point. And that is detonate this entire franchise into the sun. Because this is uncharted waters all across the board. Crazy trades, some lopsided, some not. Like new guy into the fold, Barry Trotz, exit David Poile. Like there is so much to parse through on this Preds Power. I would guess that we'll never have this much stuff to cover in a week span ever on this program again. Like, this is the amount of stuff that you would think is drawn out over the course of a full calendar year, maybe 2 calendar years. It all happened in a week's time. Trade deadline week. Bryan,
we haven't done a draft show with you, have we, Chase? I bet you that one might be pretty busy too. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, you're leading the charge here. I'm just setting the scene here a little bit. And
before we do trade deadline stuff, the most important thing to happen, to the Nashville Predators and the Nashville Predators organization actually happened late last night. In the middle of I think at the time, about 5 minutes left in the third period, the Milwaukee Admirals and who was it? Texas Stars. Texas Stars. Milwaukee was down 5-1. Wasn't great, but they were really getting chippy. Really good, like clean hit by Navrin Mutter, which is a name I still don't think is real.
Okay.
He gets a big hit on a guy, big line clearing brawl, probably 10 guys, and then John does the radio for the Admirals. The camera's panned in, and he goes, "Oh my God, the goalies are coming out!" And sure enough, here comes Yaroslav Askarov, attempting to take his jersey off like he's in the parking lot of a Waffle House, and we had us a really awesome goalie fight. And I have to tell you, and Jeff can probably tell you too, like, I was one of those people who saw them take him with the 10th pick that year and was like, "Oh, come, you don't take a goalie with the 10th pick." I take back everything. He's the greatest goaltender to ever play hockey, and I'm so happy that he's a part of the organization because the boy's got so much swag and he's got personality, which is, something that the NHL has zero of now that PK's retired. And it's good. That was the most important thing. I didn't want to put it at the end because obviously, this had to be important. GM stuff is fine, but this was important. So if you get a chance to go look that up on the on YouTube, do that, and we'll move from this topic with just some lyrics from a great poet that said that we knuckin', we buckin', we ready to fight. You better grab them things it's good. It's very, very good. But we can go on to the important stuff now, or less important, but still important stuff.
Is hockey the only sport where it's like encouraged when it's a good sign where you're like, oh, our goalie wants smoke? Like when you see stuff like that, like you're like, oh, this is a positive development. We were down on this player, but then when he did this, we were more in. We're like, okay, he actually is about it. He has that dog in him in a different.
He does have that dog in him. I think so, because it's one of those like. Because a lot of times you see these big fights and you'll look at the goalies and they're standing there just being like, okay. And you sometimes you'll see them look at each other like, we can do this. Like, let's do this. Like, I'm fully convinced that there was no, like, neither goalie was like, I want to fight that guy. They were just like, I want to participate. And I'm glad it happened because it's goalies. They're weird as it is, and you let it, a goalie fight's almost never a bad thing. I can't think of a time where it would be a bad thing. I mean, mostly it's a good thing. Like maybe, Jordan Binnington gets beat right center ice. That'd be kind of cool. But,
he always catch strays on this podcast.
I just want to say that, first of all, Brian's right. I was, even though I loved Yaroslav Askarov, during the 2020 draft, taking him 11th overall was not something that I was like super happy about. I knew he was going to be good. I had a feeling that he was going to be good because he's just insanely athletic. Like it's ridiculous. But yeah, taking goalies that early is something that kind of terrifies me. But not too long ago, I tweeted this out. Not too long ago, Yaroslav Askarov was getting hate from everybody for throwing a stick and being bad in the World Juniors and yada, yada, yada. And now he's
a legend.
He's benching the net. He's fighting goalies.
He did bench press the net.
He's one of the best goalies in the AHL at 20 years old. Like the kid's insane. He's so good.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun to watch him. I will tell you this though, Chase, if you haven't had a chance to sit and watch him play in a game, he's incredibly athletic. He's so skilled. He will absolutely cause my early death and from cardiac arrest because he is one of those guys that's very exciting to watch. I mean, but he's going to do stuff that you're going to be like, oh God, like if you weren't so good, that would have blown up in your face.
He's heart attack inducing.
Yes, he is.
But it's so good though, because like he'll do things where he'll go out and he'll play the puck and he'll fire it up the ice, and it'll just be like perfect. Like he'll come way out of his net, he'll play the puck, and he'll do funny spin moves or whatever, and then he'll send it up the ice tape to tape to one of his forwards. It's like,
so is he just doing his own mixtape out there? Is that Is he just a YouTube goalie? Is he a TikTok goalie? What's happening here?
The person who runs Milwaukee's social told me that it's literally impossible for them to try to get a candid picture of him in practice, because as soon as he notices that they're out there, he's always mugging at the camera, like just always. He'll be sitting there like in net and just turned and looking like it's just, you gotta love that, because you don't see it in hockey. Get us a little. He can be hockey's Deion Sanders. I'll take that. Prime time.
There you go. That's the first time that sentence has ever been uttered. It can be our hockey's Deion Sanders. I don't think you hear that very often. Well, there you go. Where are we going first in terms of the trade deadline, Brian? How do you want to lead this thing off?
Maybe we should do this in chronological order, because what I have for number 3 was actually number 4. The first thing that happened, I was sitting in Goodwill. But we'll talk about that one first. The first trade.
There you go. Okay, here we go. This is for Jeff.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jeff. What was the first trade that happened last week?
The Predators traded Nino Niederreiter to the Winnipeg Jets.
Who you thought was getting moved. I think Nino was who you said a couple weeks ago that was the most likely guy.
Him, I think it was. I actually said I think Fabro was the guy I thought would be moved. But Nino was one of the guys that I was pretty confident would be out of here. I think it was smart, because since that was the first move, I was kind of like, we're on the right track. So, I was happy that even though I thought the return was a little underwhelming, I was totally okay with, the move. I wasn't mad about it. It's weird because Nino Niederreiter is obviously very good. He had almost 20 goals with this Predators team, and that's impressive in itself. And I thought that he could have gotten a little more, considering what happened later down the line.
Yep, which we'll get to.
Yes, which we'll get to. But I don't know. It's weird to like. I thought maybe it wasn't that Niederreiter could have fetched more. Maybe it was that they could have waited to trade him and wait for somebody to, come calling, like a Carolina who didn't do a ton, and they need scoring. So I'm not sure. It was a good trade. Obviously, I like the move. I like getting second rounders. Second rounders are very valuable, but I'm not sure that they got all of what they could have gotten in return. That was kind of where I was at after, and I'm still kind of there a week later, or close to a week later.
Brian, I feel like that was where Preds fans, like the Nino one, was like, if that's what the value is, like this is going to be a really depressing week where they're going to sell off, and Dave Poile's not going to get good returns on a lot of important pieces. And you're like, this is not great. And this was like what we were kind of concerned about over the last month of like, are we sure you want Dave Poile leading the rebuild? Are you sure you want him to be the man responsible for tearing this thing down? Like, are you damn positive that is the route you want to go? And then things change. But what did you think about the Nino haul? And after everything, I think we have to now talk about it in context of everything that happened after. Are you feeling better about it after?
Yeah, everything? So when I saw it, it was one of those where I thought because he had the characteristics of this being a trade to be a rental, but he has another year, correct? Was that right, Jeff?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I thought, in a vacuum that I was like a second next year is okay. You would have thought, I was hoping maybe that they could have gotten maybe a player out of it with that. That would have been okay with maybe a prospect, something like that. But it's not often a team's going to trade their second leading goal scorer, which is kind of crazy. But, I think it was a good signing when it happened. I liked it. He was really good. He had one of those quietly productive seasons. He kind of reminded me of Craig Smith, where you just be like, oh yeah, he does have 20 goals, huh? Like it's just one of those where it happens. But if I had to grade it again before knowing what else was going to happen that day and beyond, I like B- because it could have been worse. I've seen some of the returns that people have gotten for other players, star players even. And so I was like, yeah, it's B-. It's not great, but it wasn't actively harmful, And it's one of those things where that's a guy that if you're going to be focusing on a rebuild, that he's probably not going to want to be around for that. He probably thought that this would be, he'd give Nashville these 2 years to try to make one big push. And so I think it probably worked out good for him as well.
It's also better for him, right, not to end up with the Sharks. That didn't really feel like that would make sense context.
No, that would have been like one of the Fabro or those kinds of. Yeah, I mean, Nino was going to go to somebody contender. And I was very surprised though. And I say I will mark it. I think I marked it. I'd say it's a B- just for the fact that don't trade Nino to a division rival. Come on now.
Yeah, that's also why I was kind of confused why they didn't get much more back. Is because not only were they trading a guy with a year left of extra term at a very team friendly kind of deal, but they traded him to a division rival. And I know that it's not like the Preds are competing with Winnipeg for anything, but it's still, you're helping out. He's going to be in the division next year. So I don't know.
But it's $4 million off the books this year and next. So
there's a lot of money off the books, Brian. There were a lot of moves that took some money off the books. Where are we going next?
So I guess right after, because I hadn't left the store yet when this happened, is my phone got really hot in my pocket, and it buzzed pretty much constantly for about a span of 5 minutes because they announced that General Manager David Poile is stepping down effective June 30th and being replaced by former head coach Barry Trotz. First time executive Barry Trotz. And, we talked about this last week a little bit, and I
Greg nailed it, by the way. He said Barry Trotz. He said Trotz would be the GM at the end of this year.
Yeah, and I did make the point of saying that, I made the unfortunate comparison to, if you're going to try and go after past glory, don't do it by getting guys that you used to have, and you don't want to be like Chicago. I don't know how this is going to go, and for all intents and purposes, the trade deadline moves were mostly made by David Poile, from what I hear. But apparently Trotz has been kind of helping out behind the scenes for a while, and I kind of think this is a little bit of revisionist history, but Poile said that he had Barry Trotz working with him kind of throughout the season, that before the year he said that they were planning for this day, the day that he was going to announce it. In my opinion, I don't think that was true. I think that this was kind of no, I think we need to move this up right now.
Yeah.
Because they did put Bridgestone Arena together pretty quick for it, but I think that they kind of saw the writing on the wall, the catfish on the ice, whatever you want to say, and it did a very good job in getting a fan base that had 90% turned kind of back on board. I wouldn't say it got it all the way back, but they would fix that later. But I think it was a good first step. And again, David Poile's the winningest GM in NHL history. He had all those games with Washington. Then he's been Nashville's general manager since day one. And so it's you have to say, Nashville isn't Nashville and where they are right now. And they may not even have a team in Nashville without David Poile. And with that, you have to give credit for that, because again, it's kind of like what I said when they fired Peter Laviolette, despite my personal feelings for Peter Laviolette, that, Nashville is who they are now because of these people, and that's 100% with Poile. And Nashville probably won't be able to ever properly thank him, but it was time. It was time, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, I think, now. But it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, because again, it's just a brand new GM, someone who has no front office experience, so it's going to be very interesting. I mean, Jeff, do you think do you like it if? In the terms of not just Poile not being GM anymore, but, Barry Trotz?
It's a little terrifying. Not necessarily because I don't think Barry Trotz is a smart guy, but I think the way that his teams were built, how he coached them, what happened to Matt Barzal under Barry Trotz scared me. Like one of the most creative offensive players that the NHL has seen today is not scoring, or scoring less. And it's like they it's not like the Isles didn't do well when that was happening, but it is, after having watched lots of seasons of Philip Forsberg not scoring as many goals as we think he can, it's a little terrifying. But it's different though, because he's not coaching. But it worries me a little bit that he's going to go out and find a coach where that happens, because that's kind of how he operates. As far as I think, as far as him being a good GM that goes, I think he'll be fine. I don't know. It's just hard to tell at this point, especially because we don't know how involved he's been with the moves that have been happening now. Like if David Poile came out and told me that the Tanner Jeannot trade was Barry Trotz's doing, I'd be like, sign me up. It's like, dude, get him in before June 30th. Like that, but we don't know. And David Poile, you're right. Like it was time for him to go. Like so much for the city. He was the architect of this franchise, and he made hockey a staple in Nashville. Like he made people want to go to hockey games in downtown Nashville because of the teams that he put on the ice and how he built this franchise up. But 26 years is a long time, and so it's good that he's going out on this note. Like I'm very happy that this last trade deadline is how he's going out, and I think I'm going to give Barry Trotz the benefit of the doubt until he shows me that he is not capable or not doing a good enough job. I'm not going to be super critical of the move, but I would say that if Nashville fans have any doubts, I think it's fair. I think you have a right to be a little worried, especially this is a very delicate time in their history, and a new GM brings in a whole bunch of different possibilities. Like as much as David Poile was not doing great, he was stability. So it's you've seen franchises get new GMs and they are great, and then you've seen new franchises get GMs and they have been bad for years. So I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities.
I will say this on the last thing on this is you're right. It did bring stability, but it, at a point it becomes the kind of stability where you say, yes, I know my car is up on blocks, but it's stable. Yes, I mean, it's kind of how it felt. Kind of how it felt. Like it's not going anywhere, so don't worry about it. But
the 2007 Honda Accord, where you're like, it gets me where I need to go. I think just about every day I'm okay driving to work in it. Like I know I'm gonna be all right. I'm not gonna go fast.
No.
I'm not gonna.
You're not gonna get there
fun.
where you're trying to go. You're gonna get stopped about 2 hours beforehand every time. But oh well.
Well, last thing I was gonna mention to you guys too, what do you think the makeup will be with the current staff? Because obviously Dave Poile's son Bryan is assistant GM and director of hockey operations. You still have Jeff Keelty in there. You have Scott Nickel, who is the assistant GM, but he also runs the Milwaukee Admirals. You go down the list. I wonder, do you foresee getting a step up? Because Barry Trotz is a first-time executive that I wonder if one of those guys are positioned to take a bigger role in the administration. I
would say, and this, I don't have any insight on this really, but I imagine that those guys may... Nichols, I think they're going to hold on to Nichols. I think they're probably going to hold on to Keelty. Bryan Poile will be kind of a depending on what they want to do thing. But I think this is a case where, especially with a guy like Trotz, he does know the organization. He does know a lot of those executives, but he's probably going to want to keep them around for at least a year to kind of get things transitioned. No, not in a front office type of a thing, but I am very excited about the possibility that maybe Nashville could retrieve an old goalie coach that used to work with Barry Trotz, Mitch Korn, because
that would be awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible. Now, granted, all credit to Nashville's current, which now I'm completely drawing a blank on their current goaltending coach. Vanderklok. Yeah, he's very good too. But Mitch Korn is the goalie whisperer. And so with, what they've got, in the pipeline, with Nuck if you buck Askarov, it'd be good to have a guy like that. But it's kind of hard to tell because like any other, like lots of sports, you get like, oh, this guy's going to be the new GM. This guy's going to be the new coach, like the guys that are going to come with them, like the guys that they keep in the organization. But this is, who does Barry bring in for that? Like, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. But, I also think about this, and while you were talking, Jeff, earlier too, like, it could have been worse. It could have been we could be watching what's happening in Pittsburgh right now with, how they feel about their GM, or in Philadelphia or in Calgary or in Vancouver. Like, we could go on and go on. So
I think Pittsburgh was the worst. If I was reading the tea leaves correctly over the last week, I feel like Pittsburgh fans are the most pissed off of any
Philly
fans
right are not happy.
But Philly fans are numb. Like, Philly fans, like, it's just, what are you expecting at this point? If you're still doing the Philly thing year over year, you're like, all right, I think Philly fans understand that, like, this has been mostly chaotic for all of the 21st century. Like, you really haven't enjoyed a lot of, like, Pittsburgh's won a lot of hockey games, and they've won titles. They still have their vet. Like, I think Pittsburgh fans, their expectations are significantly higher, where it's like, hey, this is not going to work, where they're making jokes about like their GM going to bed too early. It's never a good sign, where it's like things are happening and our GM's been asleep for 3 hours.
I think that you're right. Like, they do have higher expectations, but when I look at the Flyers, like it's not even that, they have expectations. It's that their general manager is not doing anything. Like, he's not even trading away guys that need to be traded. Like, like the basic, like the fundamentals of the job, he's not doing. And, like some of the stuff I got quotes from Charlie O'Connor at The Athletic, who's awesome at his job. Like I saw quotes on my timeline on Twitter, and, some of the stuff I was kind of like, okay, he can't really help that. But there were some things where Chuck Fletcher saying that the Flyers were like the 5th most improved team in the NHL, and like all this other stuff as they are sitting way out of the playoffs. Like, it's bad there. Like, it's to the point where it feels like the general manager is not trying to. Ron Hextall's trying to keep them in the playoffs, and by doing that, he's acquiring older guys and with interesting contracts. But Chuck Fletcher's just, I don't know what he's doing. Like,
yeah, I didn't realize you weren't kidding. They didn't do anything.
No, they didn't. James Van Riemsdyk was not traded.
We got Brendan Lemieux.
They got Brendan Lemieux for Zach McEwen and a 5th, I think. Like, he didn't do anything. Like, yeah. I don't know.
Well,
I'm not a Philly fan.
What is their best run? Like, I'm looking at like the last few years. Like, so you're looking at
probably would have been the Cup final,
which was when
the Blackhawks' first Cup, 2010.
Yeah. So we're looking at 13 years. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's been a long time. Like, it's just.
At least that's the one I can remember. I don't know if there was one after that where I was.
You were like 4, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the majority of my life is they're not good.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: the only difference between what's going on in Pittsburgh and what's going on in Philadelphia is that I have enough Flyers friends that I feel slightly bad for them. Yeah. I don't have any. This is all just petty and spitefulness, but I have no, sympathy for Pittsburgh. Let them burn. So.
There you go. Where are we going next, Brian?
So next on the list was the trade that I still can't believe that happened, and is the first time it's ever happened in NHL history. Previously undrafted free agent and dark horse Calder candidate Tanner Jeannot, with 4 goals this season, was traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning, to a GM that I think is usually pretty good, pretty smart about this stuff, in Julian Brisbois, but they got take a breath so I can say it all, a protected first in 2025, which means if it's top 10, then they get the first the next year, a 2024 second round pick, and then a third, fourth, and fifth in the third round for this year. I think Elliot Friedman said that other GMs, like pretty much all like 30 other GMs were just like, what happened and like why did this happen? And it's Tampa, so they are very much in. They've got like 2 picks in the next draft or something, like not much left, but they're a good team. They're contenders. They've had a formula that's worked. I'm trying to think of his name. Who was it they added a couple years back, like right at the deadline? It was another
Blake Coleman.
That's it.
Ago. Yeah,
like it was one of those where like, yeah, what's this guy gonna bring you? He's like a middle six at best. Like he's gonna be a physical, and then he got to Tampa and blew up, and he did fine and helped them kind of get them along. So that return is like, it's almost one of those where like the return was so good, I was like, I almost feel guilty. I don't, but it's. I mean, there's absolute win. I don't think you can make a better trade at this point for a guy that you put no draft capital into developing. You paid him, minimum salary, and then I think he got one extension for not very much. And he's a guy that was not producing this year because he shot something ridiculous like a 19% last year, which we in the industry say is not sustainable. And so awesome. Any misgivings that I had about the first trade, gone. I mean, at this point, you could have been like, you know what? Because of the Tampa trade, we're going to actually turn that into a fourth. I'd be like, that's fair. It's great. I can't A+. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a really good trade. I mean, and you can definitely tell that there's a theme rising in the trade deadline this year, is that Nashville wants to show out this summer at the draft, and I think they're well on their way for that.
Jeff, though, on the flip side, does it make you kind of nervous where it's like the Lightning, good organization that you trust more often than not, is like, we'll give up a lot for Tanner Jeannot, where it's like, are we missing something? Is there part of you that's like, is he going to be a star in Tampa Bay? Like, is this something that people are overlooking a little bit about this?
That was actually going to be my first point, was like, shout out to David Poile, because that was an awesome trade. Like, incredible. I've never seen anything like it. And clearly NHL people, or people around the NHL, have never either. But Julien Brisebois does not make a move like that if he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, as much as I think Tanner Jeannot was not good this year, he just flat out has not been good. It is a little terrifying. Like he sees something, and that worries me a little bit. Like, I'm not expecting Tanner Jeannot to be 20 goals again, or like 25 goals again, but they don't need him to be. And so that's the Preds needed him to be, and the Lightning don't, which takes off a lot of pressure from Jeannot. So that's bound to go well for him. But in the end, like, even if he's what he was last year for the Lightning, like, I'm not looking back on it and being like, he shouldn't have made that trade.
No.
Like, every day of the week, do that. I don't care if Tanner Jeannot scores 30 goals next year. Like, do that every day of the week.
That's
yeah,
fair.
I mean that's the thing. It's all relative. You have to look at the market, and you see things like, you know what? It's just, that's the kind of return you get. If you're going to be a player like Tanner Jeannot, you're going to get that kind of return. And if you're a player like Patrick Kane, you get a 4th round and a 2nd round pick. So I had to throw that in there. I couldn't believe that return. But that was another thing Greg talked about, and he was dead on again. So
that guy, he should cover hockey for a living.
Yeah,
he should. Yeah.
He should.
Pretty good at it. Mattias Ekholm, though, another one who we all thought was going to get moved. Bryan, he gets moved. Another one where it's like, okay, Edmonton, I guess that makes sense. Edmonton's just, they're a weird team to figure out too. It's like just the ultimate, like, Connor McDavid is just something special. Like, you just get on Twitter once a week and you'll just see Connor McDavid do something and you're like, oh yeah, that guy's still just ridiculous. And then you're like, Edmonton should really figure it out with Connor McDavid at some point. They should really get it. They're like the Los Angeles Angels of the NHL is what I've decided, is where the Angels have had this generational talent for over a decade in Mike Trout, and they never
got another one.
And they got another one. Well, for another year. I think he's out.
Yeah,
I think
Shohei
is out of here after this year. But then you're like, oh, they can't handle a generational talent. And they're just going to really do just no moments, like no McDavid playoff moments, no real cup run until he leaves eventually. And then they trade for Matthias Ekholm. And you're like, okay, maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know, Brian. What do you think of Ekholm and whether or not he moves the needle in Edmonton?
I think it's a really good trade for Edmonton. I'll give them that. I mean, he's not an expensive contract. Let's put it relative to his value, I think, and what he brings. He's veteran. In the last few years, since PK Subban actually was traded away a few years back, he is no longer a stay-at-home defender. He can carry the puck in. He can quarterback your second power play, or even maybe your first. And he's consistent. I mean, he's even like in the times that he's been, struggled a little bit and stuff, he's always either been like pretty consistent defensively, or he's getting a little bit of offense to make up for it. And it's one of those that like Ekholm was like next on my list of players' jerseys to buy, which should have indicated to me that he's getting ready to go. Because that's happened several times now. We miss you, Ryan Ellis. But it was one of those that like he's in the prime. He's in his prime. Defensemen, they hit their prime later. He didn't need to be around for this. I think, I could tell that it broke his heart to leave Nashville. I think it was one of those where he just was like, I thought I was going to be here for my whole career. But I mean, he has to be pretty stoked when he, picked up that his first assist with Edmonton, and he's like, oh, this is what a power play looks like, an actual real life power play. Oh, wow. And so it was good. And the return was, fantastic. Again, they've got Edmonton's first round pick in this year's draft. So now they've got 2 in the first, a 4th in 24, which it's fine. I say that, but Nashville has some starters that are 4th round picks, so wouldn't you see a 4th round pick? I think so.
It was,
yeah. And then Reed Schaefer, who was 31st pick.
Yeah, he was
in
the
last year's draft.
Round.
Yeah, he's a upside guy. I'll say that he's absolutely. There's stuff there. He probably shouldn't have been drafted that high. He's a little bit of a project, but it could be exciting. And so that'll be good because Lord knows Milwaukee needs the help right now. And then Tyson Barrie, who I was absolutely convinced was going to be gone before the deadline was finished. $4.5 million. Not bad. He's actually not bad on the power play either. But I still don't think he's going to be a Predator this time next season. Which is fine because it's whatever, but they didn't, it's good to have that the healthy bodies now. And then the weird part of the trade, which some people got upset about outside of Nashville, was that they retained 4% of Matthias Ekholm's salary, and you can retain up to 50%, and that's fine. It's $250,000. That's it. I think it was. And you only get 3 slots of 3 retained salaries that you can take on. And it's hard for me because I was just like, who cares? Like, why does that matter? But retaining salary also makes a lot of your moves possible. So say they wanted to move somebody like, I don't know, for example, like Roman Josi, and they really needed to move him, but like nobody was willing to take on the $9.6 million a year. So you retain part of that. They get a cap hit for like 7 or 6, and that's much more. That's a way that you can you can grease the wheels to make a trade work.
It's the only way. It's the only way that Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene are getting moved.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so, again, it's a big return. I think Barrie was kind of they didn't want to budge on a second rounder. And so they said, well, here. But I mean, Barrie was one of the ones that was projected to come to Nashville a couple weeks ago, I think now. So I mean, for me, A minus, just because maybe, but I mean, like to get a guy that was a 1st round pick last year, I like it. And then you get 2 in the first, this upcoming draft is fantastic. Just utterly fantastic because they can address, I mean, they've got needs coming to the draft. They've got needs, and it's just check all of the above, that's what their needs are now. And so, except for goaltending, I think they're good there. But
can they actually play 2 together? Is that going to be a lot? Let's just get rid of a defenseman and put two in the net.
Oh no, or we just don't call anybody defenseman anymore, and you just play positionless hockey. That's the right way to go about it. But yeah, I mean, Jeff, I mean, what do you think? I'm trying to find reasons to not give it an A, but I'm coming up short.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I knew that once everybody was kind of being moved, I figured Ekholm was out. The 4% retained is a little weird, but who cares?
Mm-hmm.
And Tyson Barrie, like you said, I don't think he's going to be a Pred for very long. I'm a little shocked that he is still a Pred. But, you know, he'll be useful. He was I didn't really pay attention to him in the Florida game, but from what I saw, he was fine. Reed Schaefer, I'm going to leave all of that analysis to Eric and on the Forecheck because he's way smarter than I am. But from what I've heard, like you said, he's a project, but I think I saw Eric tweet something about his wrist shot, which is apparently pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's great. And draft capital, like nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad at all. I think I'd probably give it an A-.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of people were kind of like, that's it, which is a little weird because I think it was the fact that Tyson Barrie was in there, which was, I think, a salary move because Ekholm wouldn't have been able to fit there. But yeah, I mean, by all accounts,
it seems like fans just have a high sense or a high approval of Mattias Ekholm. Like, I think that's part of it when these trades where it's like, oh, this guy that we've loved for a really long time that we still think is really awesome should net this kind of number, and they have an idea in their head of what his actual value is. And I think a lot of folks still see him as a star and bring in like kind of like the Tanner Jeannot trade. Like that would have blown them away way less if that was the trade for Ekholm.
You switch the returns for those 2 trades, and I would have been like, that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense. Like I was like, there's no way you're going to pull that over on Tampa. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And, you know, again, like Nashville doesn't have many guys left from the Cup run, which, you know,
who is left?
So Johansson, if you count the Cup finals, Johansson was injured by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So Forsberg, Colton Sissons, first line center, Colton Sissons, Roman Josi, Carrier was a black ace. Fabro was still in college.
UC was there, but he was back up.
Yeah, UC.
Well, he played some because Pekka sucked in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he did. That's about it. I think I can think of. I mean,
that's wild.
Yeah. No, it's the Predators. That's Minnesota, Chase.
That's right. Who do you think's next?
Which one of next for?
Who do you think, or not even who's next? Who do you think's the last one standing? If you had to guess, who is the last one from that Cup run? Who's the last Pred from that Cup run?
I mean,
who would you guess?
Depends on which of the 2, Forsberg or Josi, retires first. Because they've got long term. They've got the things. I think Johansson could be that guy just for the fact that they just can't get rid of him. I love
you don't say UC. I think a lot of folks would guess Saros. It's like if you think you're set there, you're just like he's locked in for a long time. But this is all going back to Arsenal. That's what's happening here. Is you have your guy in waiting, and you're like, I'm ready to move off from UC. We're okay. We're fine.
I think he gets moved.
I didn't put that on the outline because that's going to be a topic for next week that I want to spend some time on.
Okay.
Yeah, which was should Saros have been on the market? And I have strong feelings about that, and Jeff knows that. So
we have strong opposing feelings on this topic.
Yeah,
so.
That's okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, it's all yeah. It'll be
fine.
Be
We're supposed to. I mean,
content.
It's okay. I mean, you're perfectly entitled to have your wrong opinion. So
don't deny the inevitable, Bryan.
I know.
Well, before we wrap up with Granlund in terms of NHL stuff, Jeff, let's get you in here with some AHL stuff. Bryan, what happened here to set this up for Jeff?
Nashville went yard sailing and they saw something and they said, this is however much this is. And Nashville said, nah. And they said, yeah, it's fine. Just take it. I don't need it anymore. And so they dearly departed future considerations. We will miss you and your time as a Pred, but 2 guys. And I purposely put Jeff on this one because I don't know nothing about either of these guys. Rushoff was a big boy. He's the same size as Joachim Kondelik. He's like 6'6", 6'7". I mean, big boy. That's a huge boy. And so it'll be good. He's got a nice little shot. He's not quite as granted. Again, I'm an analytics guy. I'm a guy that doesn't in hockey is like size is one of the least important things. You can still do it. But I also have I may be the biggest Joachim Kondelik fan in the world because he's so big and he skates like a very elegant, tall goose, and it's awesome to watch. And Rushoff kind of looks like that too. He's not quite as elegant looking. And I say elegant, it's relative. But yeah, and then Asplund.
I'm talking about a little place called Aspen.
Yeah, where the beer flows like wine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Jeff,
do you even get that reference?
I don't.
Like
I've heard something about it, but
women will flock to him like the salmon of Capistrano. It's okay.
Salmon, Slammy, Samsonite. I was way off. Nothing, Jeff.
Our birds' heads are falling off. Okay.
Nothing from you.
That's your homework for next week.
Oh
Jeff,
my
is to find out where that's from. Okay.
Brian, we're old. Dumb and Dumber is what's happening here. The movie.
I know what that is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But no, Jeff, God, please take over because I don't know anything else about these guys.
So yeah, they're very big. I know that Ratcliffe, reading stuff from Flyers fans. I think I always get the wording is confusing. Or Flyers fan friends. There we go. They're all. They know he's big. I think he had a shot to make the roster for Philadelphia this past training camp and didn't because he just wasn't very good, and he hasn't been very good in the AHL with Lehigh Valley. But I don't know a ton either. I know that he played 10 games with the Flyers last year. And he actually did okay. I think he had like 4 points or something like that. 4 points in 10 games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is all Milwaukee help. Like, there's not much more to get into other than that. It's really, it's two guys that are kind of they weren't going anywhere with their other organizations. I know less about. The guy from New York. I don't know how do you pronounce his last name? Rushoff. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I know less about Rushoff than I do about Ratcliffe. But I know that they're just there to help the Admirals. I mean, they're both big. They both have some endearing qualities, and they didn't give anything up to get them.
They fill a roster spot.
Yeah. But
I will say that Buffalo one nearly gave me a heart attack because my text when I got the notification, all I saw was trade with Buffalo for Rasmus, and I said, "Oh, what?" But no, it's Asplund, which
Rasmus Asplund is an interesting one, and I tweeted it out because although he has not recreated his defensive production last season into this season, he was a top 5 defensive player last year by the analytics. Like, no joke. In the entire NHL, he was top 5 at preventing high danger chances against. And that is so fun for a 7th round pick in 2025. Like, it's probably not going to amount to anything. And,
but neither does the 7th round pick most of the time.
I do not care because, like, even though, what the Preds need is offense. I love me a good defensive forward, and that kind of production. I don't know. It's just I'm very excited. I was very excited when I saw that deal, and I was very eager to tweet about how good he was last year because, Sabres fans, I think Sabres fans liked him because he was just really good at defense, and his offense I don't think is really there. Like, I don't think he's a super
good thing he's in Nashville.
Yeah, it'll fit right in. But yeah, I don't think his offense is super. I don't think he's a very creative player. I haven't watched a ton of him, but from what I've heard, he's not like you're not missing out on a ton. But yeah, I don't know. Like he's just the fact that he did that last season. The fact that he's capable of that is just awesome.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people, especially if you're not familiar with him, I think his best comparison to people might go is he's Colton Sissons from like 4 or 5 years ago, like a strong defensive guy. He's going to be in there. You're not going to notice it watching the game, but he's that type of player. And so that is good. I mean, just for a 7th round pick, Nashville's done some damage with their 7th round picks. That's how they ended up with Connor Ingram, so
he's doing great.
Yeah, he's doing
Nashville.
good. Yeah. See, and that's why I'm not worried about Tanner Jeannot scoring 30 goals next season, because the rules say in the NHL bylaws that the only former Nashville players that are allowed to go blow up are the ones that we give away for free. So
yeah. Look, many forget that Nashville's a nonprofit. Draft pick though, and salary cap breakdown, Brian. This is your bread and butter. So what after everything has happened here?
Well, almost everything.
Week? Yes.
I think I'm gonna tell you to give you another trade that we briefly glossed over.
Granlund.
Yes, which Mikael Granlund, a guy that they signed, he's got 2.5 more years left on his deal at $4 million a year. A guy that you said, tell us this last year or a year before, had been like, oh my God, no. But he has been among, analytically and eye test, he has been among like the bottom 8% of the NHL as terms of just everything. I mean, he's a playmaker. He's able to rack up points through assists, but he was having maybe an awful season. And I was absolutely certain that if Mikael Granlund was going to move at this trade deadline, there would be salary retention. There would be more pieces going to Pittsburgh. And instead, they gave Nashville this year's 2nd round pick and said, we're good. And I did get to witness, because I talked with Jesse Marshall, who writes about the Penguins for The Athletic. Him and I talked after it happened a little bit. And if you don't get a chance, he did a fantastic breakdown about Granlund on The Athletic. Please go check it out, because it's some of the best writing I've seen in months.
It was very thorough.
It was very good. And Pittsburgh fans are mad, and that warms my heart. And so it's it's fun. And I feel bad because I like Granlund a lot. And I said, one of the first things I said, that he isn't as bad as his stats are like what your eyes have shown you for the last year. Like, I think that it's just he hit a rut, and he's a good player, and I think that he will kind of bounce back with Pittsburgh. I really do. But the fact that there was no salary retention, you got a 2nd round pick, and you didn't have to send anything else, it might have been maybe the most, like, what's the word I want to use for it? It, like, low key might have been the best trade, just for the fact that, like, it could have been a trade where Nashville had to give up more or get a really bad return or something. But you got able to get rid of what, if you prorate it now, about $10 million over the next 3 years for a 2nd round pick. And that's for a guy who was not performing. I mean, you talk about Tanner Jeannot's low performance. Mikael Granlund was right there with him. And the fact that those two guys got moved, and, they, even with the Jeannot trade, they got Cal Foote out of it. And I think he'll be around for a little bit. And so, I mean, those are the trades that it was hard for me to go back and like get myself in the mindset of, yeah, I really didn't like the Niederreiter trade at first, because I mean, at this point, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, you've more than made up for it. It's like when you mess up and you forget a birthday, your girlfriend's birthday. And so then you bring her flowers, and then you buy her a car, and then you take her on a tropical vacation.
Here's what you do to avoid all of that, folks. And
What's
this
that?
is not because I'm speaking from experience here.
Uh-huh.
You marry someone whose birthday is Christmas Eve, because guess how many times you're going to forget that your wife's birthday is on Christmas Eve? Exactly 0 times. So that's what you want to do. You want to first date question.
The pressure's on, though, in that case, Chase, because then it's my grandma, her birthday is on December 25th. And like, nobody wants to be like, do not lump me in with Christmas. I want my own thing. So yeah, that's hard too. Yeah.
I think 25th is way worse. That might be the word. That's got to be number 1. That has to be the worst.
Thoughts and prayers, Chase. Thoughts and prayers.
Hey man, our 6 month is in 2 weeks. Pretty
wow,
great.
It's already been 6 months. Congratulations, dude.
Thank you. And they
hadn't kicked you out by
the hardest.
yet.
They say the first 6 months is the hardest, and we're already through it. So all smooth sailing from here on out. Many forget that everything after 6 months just gets easier in marriage. So yeah, we're good.
Except when you hit that 10-year mark, but we can go into that another day.
I got time for that. God, I'll be 42 at the 10-year mark. Okay, I don't want to do that anymore. We're not doing that. Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
All done, Brian. But the draft pick and salary cap breakdown. Let's get into that. Like we have everything. But let me just put before we get into that.
Yeah.
Folks, that is insane how much happened over the last week and how many guys are just out the door, both in the front office, on the ice. Like there's a cleaning house that you have in your head, but this is a full on let's give Jeff and Bryan control of the Nashville Predators for a week. Like, give a sports writer who covers the team the opportunity to run the team, and that's something that happens over the week. This is not how things usually go 99% of the time.
I thought about seeing if we would want to get Eric to come on and talk about this, but he might be dead from joy just because he's got all these prospects and picks now. But it's so let's break it down real fast. So really quickly, right now Nashville their projected cap hit is $78 million with $4 million in cap space, which fine. That's because you've just got things to take care of, and that'll change here shortly. They've only got 21 guys on the roster right now. I'm sure that's going to change after they finish papering everybody back and forth from Milwaukee. But then when they go down to, if you look at the cap hit that they are on the books for next season, right now, they would have 15 contracts and $64 million on the books right now for next season. That goes down to $50 million 2 years from now. So it's, there's space, there's room to do things. Not necessarily now. I have to get out of the mindset of you want cap space when it comes to the off season, because now it's kind of like, no, not really. So that's great. But looking at the draft, so in this summer in Nashville has 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, 3 third-round picks, 3 fourth-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, and 1 sixth-round pick. And this bum organization could not manage to keep a 7th. So in 2024, first-round pick, 1 of their own, 3 in the second round, 1 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, and then they get that 7th back. So all right, they're fine. And then in 2025, there's the 2 first-round picks, Tampa's, and 1 pick in the rest of that. What's impressive about that is in those 3 years, in the top 100, in the first 3 rounds, that is, 5 plus 6 is 11 plus 5. So 16 picks in the next 3 years in the top 100. That's 4 top 50 picks probably for this year, 4 next year, and 3. They've got options. When you have 1 pick, you have to decide. If they're in the situation, they'd have to decide, do we replace our defense core? Do we get somebody who can be a stud, a guy to be a franchise defenseman, or do we need a forward? Why not both? Now they've got that option. You've got tons of things, and it's all I could have hoped for. Just to be honest, it's hard to not to take.
Bryan is so full of joy right now. Bryan is just. He's so ready. You were so over the average. You were ready for this rebuild.
It is, and it sucks. I love Matthias Ekholm. I was really sad to see him go, but at the same time, the fans are happier. I'm not getting random 3 a.m. responses to a random game tweet saying these guys need to get going. I'm like, okay, all right, I get that. They're fun because they are officially in that era of throw it at the wall and see what sticks. Mm-hmm. They were very fun and gun in the first half of the last game, just flying up and down the rink, which it was, I don't know how they won that game, but credit to them, they did. But it's just cool. You get to see these new guys. You've got a reason for fans to want to come to a game now late in the season to see some of these new guys. Ticket prices are probably going to get cheaper next year.
They better.
Yeah,
because not all organizations do this. If you're gonna do this, they better go. They better be.
They probably won't, but you're gonna find more people scalping for cheap, I think.
Mr. Haslam, let me give you some advice. You want to start off great. If you're gonna do this, slash everything going into this rebuild. You want to just win all kinds of fan support right out of the gate here. That is the easiest thing you can do. That is the easiest thing you can do.
Yeah, and so it's really good because now it's about the future. You're not worried about, yes, you do want them to win games, and yeah, you're not officially, I am not going to be rooting for them to lose. officially. And, but because you don't really want that. And you don't want that for those guys. You don't want that for Philip Forsberg, who just signed an $8 million 8-year deal right before all this happened. You don't like that. Oh, which, speaking of, Philip Forsberg's now a minority owner of Nashville SC with, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to say his name.
Antetokounmpo.
There's my man. Yes. So
Giannis
Antetokounmpo. So they're now minority owners in Nashville SC. Very cool. I thought that was cool.
Can he get in the Preds? Is anything opened up? Because if you look at the Preds office, they have like 37 owners. Is there even space for another co-owner?
If someone's got a bunch of money, probably.
Yeah.
But so that was cool. But it's just it's one of those feelings that like, yeah, it's not going to be fun to watch games for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But how much fun was it before this? You can get the lip service, you can get the, we're not rebuilding or blah, 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 or we think we have the pieces, and it's fine. And sometimes that turns out to be right, and sometimes it doesn't. We know what their plan is because their plan is already in motion and was in motion before we knew it was a plan. So, it's one of those that, what the you're looking at the future, and the future doesn't look the same as it used to. You don't know where it's going to go, but it's not what you expected. And for that, very thankful. It's going to be fun to get in there and to watch these guys, to, put a bigger focus on Milwaukee for the casual fans. It'll be great. I'm happy. I'm so happy.
Man, there you go. Do we want to leave it there, or do we want to hit on a couple other things real quick?
Actually, I think that'd be a good spot to call it. Yeah,
it's a good one. We have some other stuff that we're going to get into, like Fabro and Lincoln's extensions. We have some NHL debuts. There's some injuries, but look, we've got a lot on the docket for next week as well, and we can get into and more Preds. They play tonight, actually, so we'll see how that goes. Probably a loss.
No, they're playing Chicago.
Chicago.
But I mean, you say that. We'll see. Another one who
they have shocked me before, so
yeah.
There you go. Jeff, what do you want to plug here as we wrap up here? Flames, Preds, what do you have on the docket?
Yeah, I mean, lots of both. Had a Flames story come out today talking about the AHL. Dustin Wolf, very good. Also, he's up there with Yaroslav. He's been the best goalie in the AHL. So just a little bit ahead of Yaroslav.
You're hurting Bryan's feelings.
I'm hurt because he's right.
Flames, call them up if things go bad. Talk about that. And they little bit of trade deadline stuff because they didn't do much for that. Just going into what they did. Dryden Hunt, I guess, great. So yeah, going to be looking at him and probably some more overview stuff and what they could have done, yada yada yada. Yeah, Flame stuff. A lot of stuff is coming out. Going to be doing a couple things on the Forecheck as well. Dante Fabro.
Okay, I was about to say that. And I was like, if Jeff doesn't know he's doing the Fabro story, he does now.
Yes, yeah, doing Dante Fabro, and honestly, anything else could come to my mind within the next couple days. So, yeah, it's gonna be an exciting next week.
Yeah, there you go, Bryan. What about you over at Renegades of Puck and on the Forecheck?
Just more of the same, but I am going to use this real fast to plug a few things that are kind of related. March 24th, if you are in the Nashville area and you're going to be in town, that is in between two games where Nashville is playing Seattle at home, and that is the same day that Pecorino's statue will be unveiled. And I'm really nervous about that because I really hope it's good. The Renegades of Puck are going to be having...
I thought the statue was being unveiled on the 25th.
Is it? I thought it was good.
Was it before the game, or I thought they did it on the day that they played Seattle? Second game.
Yeah, we can find out for you. But
days,
the good part is March 24th, the Renegades of Puck home base freak out. The second one that they've had, it'll be at Tailgate Brewery down in. I'll get back to you on that one. It's close to downtown, I believe. So it was awesome last year, from what I heard. Because again, I had the Rona. It'll be great. There'll be people here. I think Eric Young was there last time. Friend of the show.
Very much friend of the show.
We had several former players there. It was really cool, and it's going to be cool this year. There's some surprises that I know of. So I'm excited for that, including a very possible special guest and the only podcasting, pioneer, Chase Thomas, possibly. So we'll see. But
I got a plan for it, because if I'm going to make the trip, then I want to go to the game. So we got to talk about, because it's weird, the Kraken both times on Thursday.
I think one's a makeup game, right? From
that has to be right. Why else? Is it not just they played them back to back at home?
Yeah, I think it was just a scheduling thing, because the two makeup games were Colorado and Columbus.
Good. See, got a fact checker now. It's nice.
There you go.
But I do want to, instead of plugging myself, talk about two people that I really think need to have a lot of recognition over this last week. First of all, I want to talk about Colby Guy, friend of ours. Jeff and I know him. He is covering the Florida Panthers right now. He is doing an incredible job. I don't care if you don't care about the Panthers, go follow him. He's doing great work. He helped us out before this game. He's a really good person. He's someone who deserves a lot of exposure. So please make sure to go and look at his stuff, click through, scroll, because he's great. But the biggest MVP of this week, the person who won more than maybe David Poile this week, is
I know it.
Shayna Goldman.
Yeah.
The trade deadline has been dominated by your Elliot Friedmans or Kevin Weeks now, those types of guys. Darren Dreger. Shayna has been somebody who has been an incredible reporter since day one, since I first knew about her. And this trade deadline, she continued to pop off even more and was breaking trades and apparently making some of the old insiders kind of upset, because not only was she breaking trades before them, but she was also doing a very good bit where it was all about from Gossip Girl was her tweets. She is an incredible person, and she is an incredible follow. She will make you smarter. She primarily covers the New York area teams with The Athletic, but she does literally everything. And she is one of three of the Too Many Men podcast, which is maybe the three of the best reporters in hockey. Sarah Sivian, Allison Lucan, who is, I don't know, if I was ever going to have a fat head on my wall of somebody who wasn't a player, it would be Allison Lucan. So Shayna is incredible. Make sure you give her the support and you follow her, because she has been doing an incredible job. So that's all I wanted to do. I don't even know if I'm going to write this week. We'll see. So
there you go. Well, this was great. This was fun. I'm glad we're able to do this and give it the time. It needed the time to get through it. And we're entering the new era, and it'll be interesting to come back and kind of cite this of where things are going, because this has been a pivotal week in the direction of the Nashville Predators that sets the stage for a difficult next couple of years for Nashville hockey. But welcomed and difficult, both can be true. Mm-hmm. Bryan, Jeff, thank you as always, and I will talk to y'all next week.
See you next week.